All right. So, this is going to be one of my just ranting off the top of my head videos, which I don't do nearly as much as I thought I would. But anyway, this just occurred to me. Now, I'm in the US and we have a presidential election coming up. So, which is fine, but most of the time when the national news, whether it's CBS or ABC, I don't know much about NBC, when they talk about the polls and who is leading who in the polls, it's usually the national polls, which wouldn't be so bad, except for the fact that that's not how we elect a president. If it was the popular vote, which, it should be, then that would be fine. Emphasize that because that's important. But that's not the way our system works. We have this stupid electoral college. Now, I get why it initially was put into place. Yes, there was some finagling because the slave states knew that they would be in big freaking trouble if they didn't have the system in place. I understand that. But it comes down to the fear of the tyranny of the majority. Because you've got to remember where these people are coming from. They have only seen systems where there's either monarchies, which, that's why we fought a revolution, and for those that did have, so there was a fear that if the majority of the population would dictate to the minority, and let's face it, depending on who the minority is, you want to have their ideas. You don't want to dismiss the ideas. Obviously, if the minority opinion is slavery, then yeah, we should quash that like a bug. But, in theory, that's a good idea. Make sure that the majority doesn't just walk all over the minority. Unfortunately, what has happened is that the minority is walking all over the majority. All you have to do is see what's happening in politics right now. Roe v. Wade was struck down by a conservative court that was given its supermajority because a Republican Senate Majority Leader decided to steal a justice pick from President Obama, who did have, not only did he win the Electoral College, he also won the popular vote. And they gave it to this windbag who won the Electoral College but did not win the popular vote. And because he was an absolute abomination and all he cares about is power, he put in place 3 judges that, even though they promised Congress that president actually meant something, basically were, crossing their fingers behind their back to, we're telling the truth. No, really. And now we do not have those rights anymore, which that should never had to have been enshrined to begin with, because no other healthcare procedure is enshrined in the Constitution. But whatever. The fact is that this was allowed because we allowed the minority to walk all over the majority. because this is not a Republican versus Democrat issue. In the case of abortion, there are plenty of Republicans who are pro-choice, who didn't want to see abortion taken away. All you have to do is look at states like Kentucky or Ohio, where, these are conservative states, and when the abortion question was given to the constituents in a referendum, they enshrined the Constitution. So this is not a partisan issue. However, because of the way the Electoral College works, and the fact that a lot of these states are gerrymandered to hell, they were able to get away with it. So, yeah, there's a lot wrong with our system. Number one, it should be a popular vote. We should not have an electoral college. I don't think it can be reformed. And think about it. The reason the American Revolution was fought was, well, at least the popular notion, the thing that people think about when they think about the American Revolution is the ability to vote. Everybody's vote should count. And if you think about it, now I'm going to show you a map. Now this is basically a map based on poll averages from this website called 270 to Win, which I didn't do any toss-up states because, well, I just decided that I wanted to see what no toss-ups would do. So let me just bring that up. I should have brought it up before I started recording, but whatever. So I'm going to turn you around. So this is the current map. And as you can see, there are some states that are safe. Let me readjust. So if you are in these dark blue states, where the hell is my cursor? I do not see my cursor. Oh, here we are. So if you're like, say, in California or Oregon, and you happen to be a conservative, does your vote actually count? No, because you live in a majority state where basically it's a foregone conclusion that it's going to be won by a Democrat. And in these other states, which are safe for Trump, these states, same thing. If you happen to be a liberal who lives in these states, does your vote really count? No, because again, it's a foregone conclusion that you are going to that state is going to go Republican, no matter what you do. Unless, there's a big influx of liberals or, a bunch of people realize that, fascism just isn't for them and they're going to vote against the fascist. But in theory, this has been, a lot of these states pretty much have always been going Republican because they're just conservative states. So, but there are a few states, I happen to be in one of them, Wisconsin, where it's considered a battleground state. And that just means that these are states that are swing states, that some elections they go one way, some elections they go another way. And so basically, the way our system is that the candidates don't have to They don't have to campaign in all 50 states. They just have to campaign in these states where these battleground states that could help them get to 270. If this was a popular vote, suddenly everything is in play. You would have to go through all the states because it wouldn't be a foregone conclusion. Now, as it happens, I'm going to just turn tired. As it so happens, generally when Democrats win the Electoral College, they also win the popular vote. So the fact that, as of this recording, Kamala Harris has a 1-point lead in the national polls, that does say something. So it, because again, the last few Republican presidents, I think it was last few, won the Electoral College but did not win the popular vote. So yeah. So people who did not vote for a certain president could, when people outside the country would say, what the hell is going on? You can point to the popular vote and say, most of us didn't vote for this Jack Wagon. He just, that's just our crazy system. So, yeah, we definitely need election reform. Things have gotten a bit better, at least in my state, and I know that there are other states where the maps were deemed unconstitutional. So we're getting updated state maps. Now, I don't know if that also is just for state congressional districts or, for the state houses, state senate, or if it's for the national Congress. But yeah, it's just so bonkers that now you could say, well, Democrats used to do that. It wasn't that extreme. Yes, it's not right for Democrats to make these crazy ass congressional districts that just to ensure that their constituency outpopulates the other one. It should be these should be 50-50 because politicians should, I know this is hard to believe, but they should actually campaign on ideas and not on allegiance, because that's not what the political system was meant to be. The political system was meant to, the one with the best ideas is the one who gets elected, not... Actually, George Washington never liked the idea of political parties for that reason. He wanted people to put out their own ideas and not have this party platform that you have to adhere to. So for those who think that a two-party system is somehow the only way the Constitution allows anything to work, was it? We used to have third-party systems. Actually, I think it was Teddy Roosevelt who was a third-party candidate. And that's when third-party candidates had a chance of winning. And I have done a video, at least one video, mentioning that we should have viable third-party candidates. Most of the third-party candidates we have right now literally cannot win. This isn't a matter of, oh, you're just saying that because, you don't want, you want so-and-so to win. No. If you look at most candidates, RFK Jr., I don't know about Jill Stein might be on all 50 ballots, and whoever the hell the Libertarian candidate is. but like RFK Jr., that's a name that's been bandied about. I don't think he's on the ballot in all 50 states. So if you're not on at least enough ballots to get to 270 mathematically, of course that would imply you'd have to win all the states you're on the ballot in. But if you can't mathematically win, how are you helping yourself? Because depending on who you vote for, and it used to be that people like RFK Jr., people were scared to death that he was going to take away from Joe Biden, when it turns out he's actually taking away from Trump, but think about it. If you want to vote third party, you got to be careful, because if you're voting for someone who is siphoning off votes from what you would consider the lesser of two evils, you're basically ensuring that the greater of two evils gets into power. Why? Because it's simple math. And I'm not a math person. And I can figure this out. Because you're taking votes away from one person, and the other person is not losing those votes. Now, the way this election is going, it's possible that both candidates are having votes siphoned off from them to third party, and now it's just a matter of which one is getting more votes siphoned off. But it doesn't change the fact that these third party candidates can only be spoilers. They literally cannot win. And now I'm not talking about possibly Jill Stein or whoever the Libertarian candidate is. Because again, I think those two are on all 50 states. I'm unsure. I think they are. But that's why we need viable third-party candidates. Because even if they were to, say, siphon votes off from Kamala Harris or Donald Trump, it wouldn't be that they would be spoilers necessarily, because more people will have heard of them, more people will have know what their views are. They can go do debate Trump and Kamala Harris or whomever, and they will be able to have an audience, and it would be truly who has the best ideas, as opposed to the way it's become now, which is basically party loyalty, and it's just these few swing voters in a few swing states that can decide who is going to... They're basically kingmakers, because this map so far has Trump winning a lot of states. But if you look at the safe states, he might have a slight lead. Actually, he's got 111 electoral votes to Kamala Harris's 103. Now, and that's with certain states that are normally safe not being safe because of that whole mess in Gaza, and so many people upset with Biden for that. And the fact that I don't know how many people respond to opinion polls anymore. Not, at least not when you're having to talk to a pollster. I mean, I've done opinion surveys, Wisconsin opinion surveys, but, most people can afford to avoid these pollsters. Whether it be you're walking down the street and you see a pollster and you steer clear. So these opinion polls are first and foremost people who are willing to fill out the poll or talk to a pollster, which a lot of people are not for whatever reason, or they do it like I do it, that if my phone rings, I look at the number. If it's a number I recognize, I'll pick it up. And by recognize, I mean someone I want to talk to, like family. But if it's a number I don't recognize or a political one, that looks like it's political, I'll just let it go to my voicemail. And then I can decide if I want to do anything with it. Now, pollsters are getting better in that they're sending texts. But again, you can decide, do you want to fill out this survey? Do you not? Do you have the time to fill it out? Do you not? So, even though I'm doing poll averages, that doesn't mean that this is accurate. I mean, all it can do is give you an idea of patterns. More and more people are thinking this way or that way. But our whole election is based on polls. And it's also based on just a few states, which is why it's so weird. Unless you're watching local news, because like I said, I am in a battleground state. I live in Wisconsin, and they will, on the local news, mention when polls come out for whether it be presidential or down ballot races or whatever. But that's really the only time I consistently hear about state polls. Because when I watch national media, they might, sometimes mention that this is about the battle. They'll mention a lot about battleground states, but when it comes to the polls, they rarely show polls concerning battleground states. They talk about national polls. It's like, why? That doesn't tell you how people in Texas are thinking about voting. That doesn't tell you what people in Florida are thinking. That tells you what, if we had a popular vote system, that only tells you who's leading in the popular vote. That doesn't help you in this case. Again, usually when a Democrat wins the Electoral College, they also win the popular vote. So that is looking good for us. However, Republicans have won the Electoral College without winning the popular vote. So the popular vote doesn't tell you anything. Why are we so fascinated with the popular vote? Why are we following that? It's an interesting tidbit. It's an interesting stat, but it shouldn't be. Oh, look at all the enthusiasm for Kamala Harris. She's already taken the lead in national polls. Okay, the Electoral College so far has not borne that out, and that's how we elect a president, not the overall popularity. Because if it was overall popularity, I don't know when would have been the last time we had a Republican president. So, yeah, it's just really annoys me that I realize that the national news is like just half an hour, and so they can't go into state by state. You have to go to these websites. Like I go to 270 Twin. There are other websites that are dedicated to creating maps based on polling, based on forecasts based on all sorts of data, where you can find out state by state what the general mood is, what the trend is going towards. So I understand that they can't go state by state, but considering that basically it's not even all 50 states who are deciding the election. It's just a few battleground states, because most of the other states are in either camp. Either they're Republicans or they're Democrat. And so it's just a few states where it could go either way. Which, that shouldn't be a thing either. We shouldn't be just, it depends on one or two states. It should be the entire United States picking a president, and people should be feeling like their vote matters. Like, if they're in California and they're a Republican, that they're not basically feeling like their vote is being thrown away because California is going to go Democrat. That's just the way it is. Same thing with, say, Tennessee. If you're a liberal in Tennessee, if you vote Democrat, you probably feel like you're throwing your vote away, because it's a foregone conclusion Tennessee is going to go Republican. And that should not be. We should not have a system where so many people are disenfranchised, even without the Republicans trying to disenfranchise people further, because they just happen to live in states where it's a foregone conclusion which way their state is going. And now I understand that the majority could easily trample on the minority, and that the minority's ideas, their issues will not be heard. I understand that, and obviously the majority should listen to the minority. But right now we have a tyranny of the minority, and we need to figure out how to stop that. Because if a minority of people are taking away the rights of the majority of citizens, how is that beneficial to anybody? That just says that the minority doesn't actually care about anybody else but themselves. Okay, that's literally why people were worried about the majority. For that very reason. I just don't see how this turned out to be better. So, anyway, I think I'm running down. I'm just starting to repeat myself. So, that is all I have on this topic. And with that, I will see you guys in the next video.